Tom is a former managing director at JP Morgan. In his retirement, he answers questions on Quora. Tom talks about how awesome it was working 80 to 100 hours a week for JP Morgan as the head of structured finance. Tom says a huge amount of that time was reading papers, keeping up with the markets, following politics, art, and history. He says dinners and social events counted towards his 100-hour work week. Taxi rides and plane tickets to Tokyo, hotel rooms, and mentoring the brightest men and women on earth. For Tom, doing a 100-hour work week was thrilling. His words. That's not the thrilling 100-hour work week most newbies at JP Morgan get to experience, or Goldman Sachs, or any of the major investment banks, which work their first-year bankers on average 98 hours a week. Tashrima Hossain was a star student at Stanford University, and she was earning $100K a year at JP Morgan. All she had to do was stick it out for a year or two, and those six-figure paychecks would jumpstart her life. Tashrima lasted 7 months. Her 100-hour work weeks were definitely not filled with reading up on politics and art or attending social events with clients. According to her interview with NPR, she was thrown into a pit of endless number crunching, Excel spreadsheets, and PowerPoint presentations. During COVID, young bankers moved back in with their parents or friends out of the big city, but seeing their workloads shocked even their loved ones. Staying awake 48 hours straight on the sofa with their laptops, while senior bankers enjoyed Tom's thrilling version of the 100-hour work week. It wasn't what they expected. But soon, that all might change, thanks to a labor movement happening in America right now. We're shifting away from employees too afraid to take time off to leave crushing jobs with mandatory overtime. We're shifting away from employees locked in place because their savings account echo like an empty drum. We're watching everyone in America learning how to say no all at once. And it's not just minimum wage workers and folks flipping burgers. Even the highly paid, highly educated are learning to say no. And we're happy to say corporations are responding. No works. You're listening to The Re-Engineered You. This is a podcast about self-empowerment and all the myths, lies, and misconceptions we tell ourselves. Then we use science and history to bust those myths and re-engineer a better you. I'm your host, Todd Laments, the extrovert.
And I'm the writer, researcher, and introvert, Joe Anthony, whose job it is to dig through the outer layer of no doubt on the internet and get to the facts.
There's a famous quote by Warren Buffett, which pops up in every article about saying no. It goes something like this. The difference between successful people and really successful people is that really successful people say no to almost everything. Buffett's quote implies that we have something more valuable to do with our time than getting dragged off task saying yes to friends. But it's important to remember, you don't have to be successful to justify saying no to someone. You don't have to be busy with your Buffett-sized stock portfolio to turn down a brother-in-law who needs help moving. You don't have to have a creative magnum opus waiting on your laptop in order to tell your boss no to an extra shift. Today we want to explore the value of no, how to say it, and why it feels bad to say it to our loved ones. And to get us started on our no road, we have 3 myths to bust. Myths like, myth 1, toddlers seem to have a really easy time saying no, so why can't we? Why not scream no and stamp our feet when the boss comes looking for a sacrifice to the overtime gods? Myth 2, not everyone's no commands the same respect. Why is that? Why is my no an invitation to debate, whereas Joe's no is an iron wall? Myth 3, a great no will keep someone on your side. An awful no will make them resentful. So how do we practice a great no? We'll cover the vast variety of no, negatory, and no. But first I want to tell Joe about the nerdiest protest against overtime hours ever made, which involves overachievers and PowerPoint, which reached national headlines.
So we have a quick shout out to make. We have a couple of, we'll call them fellow friends and lifelong learners. Kathleen and Adam Martin, who did a bunch of research for this episode, and they put up with me asking open-ended questions on our Discord, our writers Discord, and then absolutely forgetting to respond when I get swamped in the week. So thank you so much, Adam and Kathleen.
Thank you, Adam and Kathleen.
So can we talk about what makes this the nerdiest protest in the world? Because when I hear Goldman and Sachs employees protesting their hours, I'm thinking picket signs, a line outside of a mine for some reason is in my brain.
Yeah, it's not usually in our way to stand up for investment bankers, even the young ones.
Right.
Even the minnows. You usually don't feel a lot of empathy for 4.0 kids who go working on Wall Street right out of college, do you?
Yeah, these are like Yale graduates, and they're making so much money. I can't imagine protesting a job like that you've worked your academic career to get to.
And that's what I want you hit the nail on the head there. These are high achieving kids. These are not average students. These are not just every college students. They should be sought after to make over $100,000 a year. They were the top students in the top universities in the world. So they're going into banking, and this is where you start. So they're working 100-hour work weeks, and they, instead of being the Teamsters union and going outside and drinking beer and honking horns and waving American flags, these very academics, some would say nerds, made a PowerPoint. They gathered everybody up and did a PowerPoint. And I'm going to tell you what some of the results of this was. Isn't this crazy?
I haven't seen the PowerPoint. I saw a couple clips of it, and there were pie charts, for God's sake.
I can't go through all of it. Every single one of it is interesting, though. So it said, how many hours did you work this week? And they took the mean average, right? They took the mean. The average person worked 105 hours a week. And they said, what's your average? Our average is 98, so it's up. So they've been averaging. So it's not like we just had to get this project done or tax time or anything. No, this was business as usual.
Right.
How much sleep do you get a night? The average, the mean was 5 hours. And what time do you get to sleep? They don't go to sleep until 3 a.m.
Okay. Now, this protest seems crazy because, one, the money they're making, but at the start of this episode, we mentioned a guy who was like defending this lifestyle. He was like, you read the news, it's part of your job. You socialize, it's part of your job. You live this job and you enjoy it. We said in the narrative, these are people who, to call them, I was going to call them like paper jockeys, PowerPoint mules, Excel spreadsheet, miners. They may not be taking on a huge labor load, but they are definitely doing the grunt work for the company. This is not socializing and going to the Met and going to a gala.
No, and these are gifted intellectuals. These are people who are, this is not just brainless work too. This work is all detailed number crunching, spreadsheets, and millions of dollars are at stake for this stuff. So the stakes are high too. They asked them in this PowerPoint how long you can stay doing this. Some of them said, so about 8 out of 10 said they could do it for another month. And then as it goes through 3 months, 6 months, it goes lower and lower. They get down to 3 out of 10 said they won't be able to do this for 3 months. It's just not sustainable, this workload.
Okay.
Now they said, what is your mental health before you started the job? And what is it since? They started out and they were all pushing 8.9 out of 10. So I'd say strong. They've gone down to 2.8. Their mental health and their physical health have both gone from 9s to 2s.
Holy shit. Okay.
So their mental health and their physical health has deteriorated in a matter of months from 100-hour high-stress work weeks.
Okay.
100% of them said this workload has affected their friends, their relationships with their friends, and their loved ones.
So that is the key part that I wanted to get to. Do you mind if I ask a question about this episode's inception? You had a note in our doc very early on. How much of our lives are wasted at work or watching TV? How much of it is actual living? And living was in quotes and underlined. What they are complaining about, that last piece there, they don't have social lives. They don't talk to friends. They don't chase children around a yard. Basically, if you ever watch an antidepressant commercial or a yogurt commercial where people are riding bikes in the sunshine and like playing with their kids, this is not that. This is the opposite. This is locking people into a lifestyle where they are constantly being asked of. Would you say that you struggle with that work-life balance yourself?
I do, and I always have. I think I'm in the majority of when I'm at work. I think I should be off work doing something with the people I love, and then when at home, I should be making more money at work. Double guilt. You ever feel that way, Joe?
I do. I will be spending quality time with loved ones, and I will have the instinct to grab paper and pen and just to like to think that I need to fill all of my time with being productive, at least to plan out how I'm going to be more productive when I come back to work. And then oftentimes at work I will sit and reminisce, and I'll be like, yeah, I should be living that antidepressant commercial.
Well, and you think about it. I wrote a speech about this years ago about how much of our life we spend at work. The average American who only works 40 hours a week, not these crazy hours like most adults work. I don't think 40 hours is realistic anymore for anybody. Jobs are going to squeeze 50, 60 out of you nowadays, right? Would you say it's accurate?
Oh, especially now with a lack of labor in the market. We talk about, it's not people who are just in labor who are quitting. People are saying no when they have crazy things to lose.
No, this is not the shift manager at Arby's, and that's why it's important. And the stakes, you said, the $100,000 job, these people will be making a lot more than that soon.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's not worth it, people who are so driven, who are success-driven, money-driven as well, because they're competing with the people in their family, the families they come from, and the people they went to school with.
Right. So this episode, what we want to do is we want to make people feel comfortable saying no and negotiating for your own time so that you can live that antidepressant commercial. We want you to be able to run after your kids in the yard. We want you to be able to go backpacking if you'd like. We want to be able to say no without losing our jobs. If you want to listen to a episode about how to quit in grand style and when to quit your job, we actually have a quitting episode with Lee Iacocca. It's, I would say, one of our more sort of fan favorites.
It's a phenomenal one.
I really enjoyed doing that one. I thought it was going to be a lot more dry, but it ended up being a ton of fun. So
I want to put some perspective for people. And this is just generic facts, but you spend 26 years of your life sleeping. You spend 30 of them at work. Your job is who you are.
Yes.
Okay? And about 11 years watching TV and staring at screens. So that one could probably be cut out too. So it's important that you like, or at least can handle, it's sustainable what you're going to do if you're going to do it for 25 to 30 years.
Yeah. How many of those years... Like 30 years of your life are spent at work, 10 years in front of the TV. I don't even think you could put a year number on time you've spent gluing popsicle sticks and macaroni 2 pages with your kids. Like there are so many other things that are quote unquote living that we're not doing instead of being able to say no to a boss that isn't even having us do, they're not having us do changeable work meaningful work. We're not doing fulfilling things. We're being asked to do overtime to, like these people, like Tashrima, we're being asked to crunch another Excel sheet to give to the boss as ammunition for Monday.
And for, people who are working in more laborious jobs, I do want to finish up with these stats on this.
Please.
They asked these kids what percentage of them had unrealistic deadlines for these 100-hour work weeks. 100% of them said they were unrealistic. Others 92% were shunned and ignored at meetings when they asked questions. half of the people were criticized. 83% of them were sworn at and yelled at.
Again, these are the most elite businesses in America. These are the investment banks that got bailed out in 2008. And they're treating their people
nerve,
like
right?
this.
To be yelling, for the senior people to be yelling at these kids. Right?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Okay, so do you want to get into the psychology of saying no?
I do. And I know you're probably going to explore something about what we're protecting nowadays, awareness of mental illness.
Yeah. If you've listened to episodes before, you may notice a trend. If there is a mental illness that can contribute to an issue or something that's roadblocking us from better practices, better health, better habits, we try to talk about the mental illness first to recognize it. Then we get into practical steps for the rest of us. And that's just because we want to recognize that there are stumbling blocks to doing the advice that we give. And we always start these sections with a warning. Todd and I are not doctors. We're not psychologists. We have not gone to medical school. We are basing these on our links from good scientific sources. Please follow them. If you're curious, follow our links.
Goldman Sachs would not let us sweep the floors. We wouldn't be qualified for that.
No, they would work us 100 hours just to do the interview, and then they tell us to go away after that. They would exhaust us and then make us leave. So there are mental illnesses that contribute to making it difficult to say no. And I use that phrase contribute because it doesn't mean you can't say no. It just means it's a lot more tough. Now I've got some fun history about codependency because that's what we're going to talk about first. If you are codependent, if you are an enabler, I mean that phrase right there is usually kind of used as a punchline in pop culture.
But the real people pleasers who can't say no because if they say no, nobody likes them anymore.
Yeah, it's not just a TV punchline. There are people who actually have real issues saying no to somebody because they blend other people's approval with their own sort of like happiness. If people don't approve of me, I won't be happy. So fun fact about codependency. Codependency actually started with Alcoholics Anonymous. Have you ever heard of this?
I may have been to a few meetings.
Okay. Oh, I mean the codependent part.
Oh, both of them, yeah.
Okay. So
codependency in alcoholism is that person that helps you drink, pays for it, pays off your DUI, buys you another car when you wreck their car from drinking.
In 6 seconds, you described all of the things I want to get into in a much more accurate way. That's very helpful. Yeah, that's exactly right. It's in the 1940s. 1940s to 1970s, Alcoholics Anonymous was looking at how do we cure people of alcoholism. And they noticed that a lot of alcoholics would attach themselves to wives or husbands, spouses that could not say no. Like it's almost like they were magnetically attracted. And they found out that a lot of these people were codependent. Originally, this was called co-chemically dependent or co-alcoholic, meaning, there's the alcoholic and then there's the person who pays off their DUI or screens for family. They go to the mother-in-law or they go to the siblings and they say, hey, he's having a bad day. He's sick right now. He's got a cold. Or, don't mind him. He's drinking, but he gets wild when he drinks.
He's stressed. He needs this. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. This rebranding went from co-chemically dependent, and it was eventually shortened to codependent because psychology recognized you don't have to support an alcoholic and funnel all your energy into another person to be considered codependent.
You see that and I can see somebody partner up with somebody who has anger issues or whatever their major flaw is, right?
Yeah, you can be a high school teenage girl and support your friends who are way too into stealing clothes from Hot Topic or whatever, Forever 21. You can be codependent to almost anyone about almost anything. The clinical requirement, from what I can read, again, we're not psychologists, please follow our links. Codependency refers to somebody who is enmeshed in a relationship where they lose their sense of independence while believing they need to tend to somebody else. So you stop thinking of yourself as an individual unit or person. You start believing that the other person and their happiness is part of your happiness.
You're a team. You're a partner deal.
Right. And while this doesn't make it impossible to say no to somebody, it sure does make it hard. Can you imagine having somebody who, if they're not happy, you're not happy, and then they ask you to do something, you tell them no?
Well, it can be mistaken as love. It could be taken as kindness, mistaken as kindness.
Right.
You're giving them something that they want, so because you want to please them.
Exactly. And I do believe everybody has a little piece of that in them. If Todd asked me to do something because we're friends, I will oftentimes, I'll really consider it and make sure that I have to say no before I do. And that's what a good friend would do, is you consider, how much will this cost me? Is it going to be difficult for me to provide? But if I'm codependent, I simply won't say no to him, because if Todd's not happy, I'm not happy.
But we've also had that experience of saying yes to people over and over, and then being uncomfortable, going to things we don't want to go to, having our time burglarized, and it not returned in value.
Right. I've fallen into the trap where I will say yes to someone and make a habit of it, and then I will avoid them to avoid having to say yes to something I don't want to do.
Well, Joe gets sought out a lot to work on creative products. He's a brilliant writer. I'm sure you have to say no more now today as you become further along in your career than in the beginning.
Yes. When we just first met, and I had a lot of people coming to me for speech advice and mentoring, I was saying no weekly. Now it feels like I'm saying no several times a week, if not daily. And it never got comfortable. But the closer you are to me, the more my happiness is tied to your happiness, the harder it is to say no. Still, it never changed. So what we're presenting today, it's not tools that will go away or get softer or unnecessary as you practice saying no. You will need to always be able to say a good no, a no that leaves other people on your side.
As you age and as your will and your energy level changes, you have to get good at this. You have to conserve your energy.
Right.
To be your best self. To be your best self and to have the most quality time with the people you love, sometimes you have to spend less time with them.
Right. Now, if you are codependent and if you are devoting yourselves to others and it's preventing you from doing things for yourself, examples of this, and we kind of played around with this a little bit, but here are examples of what that might look like if it is clinical. Maybe you give up your entire weekend to help somebody move, despite really needing a day to yourself, or you agree to help a coworker with their project, and it leaves your own tasks incomplete. Stepping out to help things when your sister has an argument with her spouse, just trouble making decisions, where to live, where to have a career, where to spend time with friends, because all of your choices might interfere with a partner's needs. So those are all codependent signs. If they gather enough to interfere and to damage your relationships in your life, it might be clinical. But every single one of those I read, I have experienced, and I think the people listening will probably have a couple of those where they're checking the box. So I don't think we're codependent, you and I. I think that it is more of these are human experiences, and usually disorders are defined by their consequences. So if these are carrying huge consequences for you, where you agonize over them and you realize you're taking a real personal loss, you may want to go get diagnosed. Whereas Todd and I will just realize that we are humans, and that we definitely need to work on our ability to say no so that we don't feel bad about telling somebody, I'm sorry, I can't do that this weekend.
And bless their hearts, some of our family members and some of our friends, our loved ones, will sometimes try to get more of our time than they need.
Right.
And you're going to see a pattern of that. Instead of seeing you once a month or whenever they see you, they're going to want you to stay the weekend. They're going to want to see you more. Next thing you know, they're trying to turn their relationship with you into a bigger time suck than it needs to be.
I'm glad you said that, because something I have noticed a lot are it's easy for me now that I'm an adult. It's easy for me to say no to people who are time burglars intentionally, and they're like being malicious about it. They're doing it because they need work done, or they just need more of my time to do something. The one that's harder for me is when people are in good spirits and good humor. They ask for more and more of my time. You know, a family member wants me, like you said, stay the weekend. Now stay the week. You know, you can hang out here. Keep us company. You know, they'll even tell me, we'll set aside some time for you to write and do your thing. Just hang out with us a bit more.
They just want more of you. It's genuine love.
It is, yeah. And that is the harder one to say no to, is when it comes from genuine places. I'm going to read a quote from The Guardian, and this is not about codependency. We're well into the territory of you're just human and it's hard to say no. Here's from The Guardian, and I really like this article. You should go check it out. They say, quote, "Fearing rejection, anger, or just the uncertainty of what other person's responses will be. Our people-pleasing is often rooted in childhood. We might have been raised a good girl or boy, praised for being mummy's little helper, or we might not have been given enough attention. And so we sought it by pleasing others, even at the expense of ourselves." I think that pretty much summarizes why I fear saying no. It is because I want to be thought of as a good friend or a good person, and I want people to think well of me, and I try hard not to have to say no. When you say no, when does it feel uncomfortable? Like if you say no to somebody and it hurts you, do you ever recognize a pattern in that?
It does, and I always want to push the yes button first. People don't just take no either. You almost have to come up with an excuse right off.
Yeah.
And then if you really don't want to do it, you have multiple excuses. Like, I got a new job, I got to move, I'm going to be in California.
That is, okay. I thought I had that from my family. Like, I whenever we say no, we come up with no, and here's why, and please accept this reason, and if you don't, I'll have to come up with more ones. A no in my family meant that we had to lecture with you until we sandpapered you down to yes. Like, it was a reason to argue.
Yeah, you have to win them over. It becomes a debate, and it becomes that you don't love your family. As opposed to, as a grown man, Joe, you should be able to say, I just don't want to.
Totally. And yet I still bring that to bosses. If I call into work, I will have 3 reasons why I can't be there. And in reality, I shouldn't need a single one. I should just be able to call in and say I'm not going to make it. Can I give you another quote from The Guardian? Like, it's exactly about this, actually.
Please.
They said, and this is from a hypnotherapist. They say, quote, "I am a hypnotherapist, and one client told me recently that as a child, she felt responsible for her depressed mother's happiness. Now she said she feels she must say yes to every request for fear of upsetting people." Now
I get that. You get conditioned for that, someone else's house. And we think that, Joe's going through tough times. If I need to spend some time with him, I need to be more or less there for him.
Yeah.
That's a manipulation thing, isn't it?
There's a lot of manipulation to this.
Come over here and cheer me up.
In a vacuum or a bottle, it's easy for you and I to say, we may feel bad saying no, but other people might argue with it. But sometimes that argument comes in the form of emotional manipulation. We did an episode all about manipulation, and if I tell you no, you may say, okay, fine, I'll take your no, but I want you to understand I'm going to feel bad. I'm going to be depressed because you told me no.
You wounded me.
Yeah.
There's a problem too when you're hanging around with high achievers. You can't buy them anything as a placeholder for your time.
Yes.
The only thing they value is your time. Eye to eye. Right?
My most successful friends, almost always the thing they will want the most is time. They want to pick your brain and ask questions and have fun and talk and have a drink. If you say yes too much, how do you feel? Like if you say yes to a lot of people, how does it make you feel?
Exhausted and used.
Resentment, right?
Totally resentful. And I come back, I'll say to my wife, and I'll say, that son of a bitch Joe, I'm not hanging out with him anymore. He did it to me again. I like know while it's happening. Like, yeah. I told you when we came over here. I'm serious. I freak out, and then I go do it again.
When you and I are out, if I drain you and I take too many yeses from you and I take up your time, you'll tell me we're fine, and then when you're home, you'll be like, that bastard Joe. Yeah. I get resentful. I don't tell the person I should be telling. I go away. As an introvert, I feel like my battery has been like somebody's put a paper clip on my battery and completely drained it for fun. And then I walk away feeling a little bit resentful.
Do you think, you're a statistics guy. When you go out and you have these real good social times, sometimes they are just so rewarding. You feel loved and you do feel charged. What percentage of the time is that on social things?
I would say 10% for me.
Same for me. Rarely are there winners. Usually they're not.
Yeah.
I think this time would have been better spent looking for...
I think that social events where we're not put upon are recharging and rewarding. But I think too much of the time, because of how active you and I are, I think people know that we can be tapped as a resource and we let that happen. So I think for other people, like I have friends who describe it the other way. They say 90% of the time they feel recharged by a social event or getting dragged into things.
I have a friend, and you've hung out with him before too. His name is Chris, and he does a good job of screening all his friends, and he has really good events at his house, and you get invited to those. It's always quality time and it's always quality people.
Yeah.
And I think those two things are the most important. Everybody wants to be there and everyone kind of grows. Everyone puts something in. But that's rare.
Yeah, that would take, like you said, screening. Like that's almost a job in itself, screening people.
That's 1 out of 10.
Yeah. It may also seem like today's episode, especially with the opening being about Tashrima Hossain, it may seem like we're going to focus on money today. Do you think, you had a quote in the doc, money has ruined more people than it's made. Do you think the inability to say no has something to do with that?
As far as the money thing?
Yeah, not being able to, if you are, say, working Goldman Sachs, do you think part of how money ruins you is that you can't say no to the money or the people paying you?
Absolutely. I said in an interview I did for a podcast, they were talking about, a job interview I went to that went badly. And I said, well, they weren't even paying me. Like, we're willing to take a lot of abuse. And that's what's going, these young academics who are going, these successful students who are becoming investment bankers are being bullied for the money, for the status.
Right.
And the people who are ahead of them are gladly swearing and yelling at these kids that a few weeks ago they were recruiting.
Right. If it's building your career, you're willing to say yes to a lot more, and a lot more of that is abuse, just straight up.
And who's willing to do that to people who are brand new, who are working 100-hour weeks?
If you think you have paid your way, that you've paid your due, I mean, if you're an upper manager at Goldman Sachs, I guess you could say, oh, I did my time like they did, like it's a college hazing.
That's what I see it as, like a Marine boot camp.
Right. There's ever any justification for making somebody else miserable and asking them to do things they don't want to say yes to. Like, how many of these people actually want to work 100-hour weeks? Like, would they do it without being asked by their bosses?
Setting the expectations. Well, these Goldman Sachs bankers, I don't know what they were promised. They didn't say what they were promised. They were literally begging for 80-hour work weeks.
Okay.
Well, listen to that, though.
Begging for a week that would be a nightmare for me.
Right, that most people couldn't even handle. I don't know if I could do that much thinking. I think I can think about 19 hours.
This may feel off for us because you and I, we choose to work crazy hours when we can. The average for the American is 35 hours a week. And that probably sounds nutty to people who are like working 2 jobs, but
I think most desk jobs, once you put in your Facebook time and
right. So these people are begging for more than double what the average is to bring it down to basically working 2 jobs.
Well, will you play a game with me on this, Joe? Can you get a calculator out?
Okay, so I've got my phone's calculator out.
Okay, so we're going to do $100,000. So let's divide that by 12 months, $100,000.
Okay.
How much is the hourly rate if you're doing the $100,000 and you're working 100-hour work weeks?
Okay, so 52 weeks a year, and that's 100 hours a week, and we divided that by $100,000. So that's about $19 an hour, $19.23.
Is that good money?
Oh man,
where you're being yelled at, sworn at, have unrealistic. 100% of them have unrealistic expectations.
Let's do it another way. If you are a star student with a good pedigree from like Yale, and you are going into the workforce for your first year, is $19 an hour worth it to be destroyed emotionally and mentally until you become senior in the system?
And that's, you just hit the nail on the head right there, Joe. A lot of the old timers are going to say, well, I didn't make that much coming out of college. This kind of work, this kind of stress, and what this does to you physically and emotionally is not sustainable.
Yeah.
But this is taking years off people's lives. The sleep was the big thing. The big thing saying the sleep deprivation. The average person, these interns is working about 5, or new hires is sleeping about 5 hours a night. And that's just not good for you. 77% of them are saying they're being abused on the job verbally, being embarrassed. What's more embarrassing than ask a question and you're not even acknowledged at a meeting?
Right, you're completely ignored. I have a kind of an age question for you.
As the older one, I'd be happy to give you my wisdom as your senior.
Doctors go through something similar where when they first get out of medical school, they are internists, or not internists, sorry. Residency, thank you. A lot of our sort of elite careers do the same math where you work crazy hours until you're broken in. And then once you earn that seniority, you have more stable hours, hopefully. But I don't believe that's true anymore because of the way businesses now run. I don't think corporations can afford to let seniority relax and have more stable hours. And 2, I don't think we can. It used to be that we lived in men were tougher and women were tougher and everyone was tougher when back in the 50s or whatever.
So-called nobody was lazy, right?
Right, no one was lazy, and everyone could withstand the abuse until they worked into a senior position. But honestly, our world isn't built for that anymore. Like we had an episode all about errand fatigue, where we throw so many little extra steps into someone's life so that they can operate their finances, their taxes, their house. They have to fill out rebates. They have to get online and make 17 different passwords, all with the same information. We put so much in front of people in their day-to-day now to operate to they call it life adminning. I don't think we can have that setup, the register everywhere online, have a card for every store you go to. We can't have that life alongside a 100-hour work week when you start a new career. I just don't think the two can mesh.
And I think you're right. I don't think there's these promotions that are going to come after year 1, year 2, 6 months to the day. When you've seen this many patients or you've done this many financial reports, then you'll be promoted. That just doesn't happen anymore. They're going to keep you in that position, paying you what they're going to pay you for as long as they can. Your only chance of a promotion or getting out of this hellhole is to change to a different company.
Right.
You have to make your own promotion.
Exactly. I've met so many older doctors and older people in tech and older people who are in business and finance, and they're all working like they're young again. Like they're all, especially during COVID, they are being given those crazy hours again.
They're doing things that aren't their job, that are below their pay grade.
Right.
And that's just the way it is, because no one else is going to do it.
Except if you're younger, if you have someone younger on your team, for some reason you feel like you can pile more onto them, like these excessive micromanaging and ignoring them at a meeting.
And a lot of the studies, the woman they followed was Tashrima, and she was from Stanford. She was a very, very successful student and a very good worker. And so they're talking about what are these Wall Street banks are now aware of this stuff. It's public, it's been out, it's on TV, it's on radio, it's in the media. And they have a problem because there's a talent war. You want to attract the best talent to your company, right? You want to have all the best players. You're going to win if you have the best players. So guess how they're going to attract, even with all this bad press, like Tashrima, how are they going to get new people, Joe?
So if I'm Goldman Sachs and I want to recover from all these articles that say I'm a hellhole to work for, I would hire good PR and HR. I would shape up and start demanding less of my employees. I would give in to some of their demands reasonably, and I would try to make work a better place to be. I'm sure that's what they did, right?
It's very naive of you. You're such a boy next door. Well, there's a Cornell business school teacher. Her name is Drew. And what Drew said was that nowadays these old bankers they're old bankers and think things in my days, and they're lucky to get a job here. They're lucky to work here.
Right.
But now these talented students have a lot of opportunities in not just investment banking. They have it in tech and medical. They have it all over. And all these companies want them as well. So it's supply and demand is a problem. So the only thing these Wall Street guys and girls can do is offer more money.
Right.
They don't want to change the conditions. They don't want to treat people fair. They don't want to stop the swearing and ignoring and the beatings. They just want to pay a little more. Just figure out what that sweet spot is. If we pay them this much, then they'll enjoy the beatings.
Doesn't that feel like every business is using that solution right now? Like fast food even. I see signs for people hiring for $18 an hour, but they're not changing any working conditions. They're not making it less stressful or even providing shielding or masks during COVID. They're just like, we'll just pay a little more.
Yeah, it's like at $17.75 it doesn't work, but $18 it will.
Right, exactly. Has that changed because we now have the internet, Indeed.com, and we can post our resumes on ZipRecruiter, and because we have all these other outlets online? Do you think that's changed the landscape of the talent war?
I think so. I think when you start getting reviewed and you're competing against other businesses and you're 3 stars and they're all 5 stars, how could that not bother you?
Right.
Well, and I think that too about these work reviews. They get every one of the managers who still wants to work there, put a pistol to their head and tell everyone how great it is to work here.
Right.
You can kind of tell when you read them too.
Yeah. They really sound very stock, like very, very rehearsed.
Gun to the back of your head, Joe.
Right. So if we want to tell, let's hypothetical this. If we want to tell our stodgy old banker manager, our Goldman Sachs executive that, no, we don't want to quit. We're not going to go to a startup. But yes, we would like to have less hours, and we're putting our foot down.
This is an old white guy smoking a cigar.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We're pretending that it's Monopoly guy plus cigar, and this is the guy we're telling no to, or even worse, we're going to practice today. Right now, we're going to practice telling each other no. We'll say, we don't want to do something. Now, this advice we're taking from The Guardian. So they had a good article called "Want to Improve Your Life? Just Say No." The first one is something that I never do, and I want to ask if you do it. And can we tell this to our old stodgy banker boss? Instead of saying yes on impulse, which is what I do, they advise that you get into the habit of asking, am I agreeing to this for me? How often do you ask yourself that question? Like if I ask you, Todd, can you help me? I had one recently. I was putting in laminate flooring in my house, in my room. If I had asked you, can you come help me put in laminate flooring? What would you have said?
Well, because of all the things you've done for me, I would feel obligated to say yes of anything you ask me first.
Okay.
You know, because you've always reciprocated. Every time I've asked you to do something, you've always helped me. So.
Okay. What if I almost maliciously, intentionally choose a week where I know you are just crazy busy?
Or you say like, hey, what are you doing on Saturday? Oh, great, you can help me move. Or, you know, you kind of trick me into it. Make it sound like we're going to a concert or something fun.
Right. Do you ever ask, when somebody asks you of something, to do something, do you ever ask, is this for me?
I don't, and I need to. First thing I do is go right to my calendar and see if it fits. But that's not the same thing.
Okay.
Right? That's not prioritizing myself, because time off is time off too.
Yeah.
Just because I'm off doesn't mean I want to be reflooring your place.
You said something very interesting there a couple seconds ago. You said that because I've done things for you and I've jumped in and helped, that you would feel obligated to help me back, to reciprocate. When we ask the question, am I saying yes or no? Is this thing for me? Am I doing this for me when I do it for somebody else? That is definitely something to consider. You may feel like you are saying yes to something because it is making you more ingratiated to somebody else, or it's keeping up ties in your social network. That you're feeding and watering a relationship by saying yes. So it's not that we're encouraging you to start asking, am I agreeing to this for me, so that you can reject somebody. We more are encouraging you to examine, is this something that you are saying yes to because it is part of your social network? Is it saying yes to because, like Todd, you want to reciprocate and help me with my floors so that you can have a good relationship with me? Or are you saying yes because you feel obligated just because somebody else, a human, asked you? That's all we're asking you to do. This is like when you're starting to go to the gym, your first goal is arrive at the gym, spend 5 minutes there, leave. Like, you don't have to do anything crazy. Your first goal is just to arrive. So this practice, asking yourself, am I agreeing to this for me? It's just so you know when you're in your own body, when you're saying something, when you're saying yes or no, and it's for you or for somebody else, like to start putting that line there, to start like thinking of yourself as your own individual.
And it's the number one thing for trustworthiness is being present, showing up.
So we had an episode about love, and we found out that dogs think that they are part of the sheep pack, like a sheepdog, a shepherd. They have so much oxytocin and they have so much connection with the animals they're herding. They actually think they are part of the herd. Humans are social animals. I really believe that we kind of have something similar when we say yes to somebody who is asking us to help with their floors or move them or come in for overtime. We have trouble delineating where we start and they end. Like we like the sheepdog. We're like, I'm part of the network. I'm going to say yes. So just identify when you're doing it for yourself or when you're doing it for somebody else.
The real tricky one is going to be with family.
Absolutely.
And that's the one where it gets most people, that you go there, you're tortured. Even your loved ones that come with you, your kids or your spouse or whatever, are tortured, and you put them through the same pain. And they don't deserve that. And neither do you.
Yes.
It's okay to say no to family for your own mental health.
I've started asking my family to text me when they want something. And it's a strange request. It sounds like you're asking them to go through a secretary. But honestly, do this with everybody. Have somebody text or email you when they have a request. And I tell them it's a reminder Like I'll tell, my aunt will ask me to do something. I'll say, text me so I can remember. Or a friend will ask me for something. I'll say, could you email me so I remember? But really, it helps you buy time. It helps you think. And it's totally reasonable for you to say, let me check my schedule. Let me make sure I'm available.
For those quick yes people like me, that's a good buffer.
Exactly.
Is it easier to say no a little bit via text than it is when you got them on the phone, I think?
I think for me, because I'm so self-conscious, it helps me give me time to find the right words, to search for the way to say no in a way where I can be honest and explain why I can't. When you ask somebody for help, how often are they your last resort? Like when you ask for, help moving, or you need someone to cover something.
We try to do it. My wife and I try to solve it in-house before we get anyone else involved.
Okay. I think very rarely do I ask someone for something, and like Obi-Wan Kenobi, they're my only hope.
Do you see it as like you don't want to trouble them, or their time's more valuable, or do you see it like a Monopoly thing where you did something for them, now they do something for you?
Sometimes there is a exchange going on in the background of my mind, but oftentimes I have a list. Like if I need help with something like a project I'm working on or moving or whatever it is, if I ask somebody, work definitely does this, by the way, where you'll get asked to do overtime or cover a project or crunch a Excel sheet together. And in reality, you're like number 4 out of 8. Friends oftentimes work the same way. And your friend will probably tell you if you are literally the last person they can come to. Like they'll phrase it that way so that you're more likely to help.
Am I on your help you bury a body list?
I would say probably, yeah. I mean, you and I are such loudmouths. We do a podcast about how to bury a body the next day, so we'll get caught. But yeah, I'd still ask for help. Okay, so we're gonna get into the how-to portion. We're gonna spend the last couple of minutes on this, talking about how to say no in ways where you keep friends and you don't make enemies. One of the ones I love, I do this all the time. If you tell somebody no, offer an alternative. Now, Todd, if I were to ask you, I need help with my flooring. I'm laying down laminate floor, and I almost willfully ask you in a week where I know you're just slammed and busy. Would you, like, if you tell me no, what would you come up for alternatives?
I'll say no, but I can help you get the materials at Home Depot and bring them to your place. Some way to help with a project.
Okay. I've done this before when people ask me to help them move. I keep bringing that up as an example because that one happens. I will tell them, no, I won't help you move, but I can come over earlier to help you pack. Or I can come over later to help you, fix up the new place. Another one I really like is something I've seen you do. Connect with empathy while you say no. Like demonstrate that you've heard them and that you understand their request, and affirm that they are working hard, that they are going through troubles, and make them feel good, but you still in the end have to decline. I've seen you go through that process almost step by step with people, which I've always admired. Another one I really like is turning a no into a compliment. This almost seems like wizardry and trickery to me. But telling somebody, thank you so much for thinking of me. That's so nice of you. I appreciate the opportunity. It was lovely of you to ask me first, but...
Oh boy, that's good. I'm not there yet. I'm on the empathy one.
Now, we've talked about Chris Voss before on this podcast. This is a guy, he wrote the book Never Split the Difference. He has a master class, and if you look up the phrase saying no, there are so many articles about Chris Voss because he almost specializes in saying no. doing it tactfully and doing it in ways where like you leave options.
Don't you think some drop dead gorgeous human being would be good at this? Because they've been asked out their whole life.
You would think so, but I have met people who are attractive and who are used to saying no, and it's almost like they have to be rougher and meaner about it to get the point across.
They're callous. They have to shut down. Okay, I got you.
Not just callous, but like they've gotten used to, like if it's an attractive woman, they've gotten used to guys who will not take no very well, or they don't listen to a soft no. So they've gotten used to the idea where they have to like almost slap the plate out of their hand. Like they have to really get in there.
Drink in the face.
Yes, exactly. So here's some more tactics. I just want to go through these quickly so that we have some more ammunition for us to say no tactfully. Chris Voss in Never Split the Difference identifies the types of no. He says if somebody is asking for help, some no's that you can throw in there is, how do you expect me to do that? These are rhetorical, so like you get them to think about your side. How can I justify that? Or how would I work that in? That last one there, I can imagine doing that to a boss. Like literally, if your boss is like, hey, I need you to do this, just ask them, how would I work that in? Starting with a positive or an apology. I'm sorry, but that doesn't work for me. He goes in this section, he goes the generous route or the compliment route. He says, that's a very generous offer, but, and then you say why you can't do it. He uses inability, like express an inability to do a thing. He says simply say, I'm sorry, I'm afraid I just can't do that. Or just be very direct and short with an apology. Just say, I'm sorry, but I can't. During the, in an Atlantic article, they talked about how the Great Resignation isn't slowing, it's actually accelerating. So when we talked during our last episode about the I Quit movement, that it seems to be picking up steam, it still is. They point out that working 40 hours at one company and retiring with a gold watch is a complete and total myth. The truth is, if you are Tashrima Hossain and you're thinking about quitting and somebody tells you, hey, you'll become senior partner here someday, or hey, you'll become a senior banker, this is going to make your career, just stick with it. It's probably not going to happen. Statistically, according to the Atlantic, they say the truth is people in the 60s and 70s, they knew how to say no. And this is like what we think of as the gold watch during retirement era. The Atlantic says they negotiated hours and benefits. They switched companies in higher numbers than we have in the past 20 years. We have invented, basically because of television, the idea that people used to stay in the same job for 20 years. That just never really worked or happened.
It wasn't even true.
Right. It wasn't even true. And the idea that we're willing to say no and bail on a job is kind of coming back. Because of this, because of all this We Quit movement, the idea that what you do is your identity is kind of falling away. In fact, a number of Americans who say they plan to work beyond the age of 62 has fallen to its lowest numbers since the Federal Reserve Bank of New York started asking that in 2014. So not only are people quitting, people aren't planning to come back after, until retirement, so to speak.
And what I'm taking away from this from Chris Voss and from you is saying, what I am saying is getting to the point of no fast, though.
Yeah. Feel good about saying no. Don't feel guilty. Do it tactfully. Keep friends. But honestly, saying no to a job, not only will it not cost you your career, that career might not have actually existed in the long term to begin with. So I'm sure after Tashrima Hossain quit, and I'm sure after this PowerPoint protest from the youngest, best, and brightest that are coming to work at these investment banks, I'm sure this has all been heard, and that these investment banks are changing their tune and providing less stressful work environments, right?
Now, it's funny that nothing ever changes until there's bad press, right?
Right.
So Goldman Sachs made a big announcement, and they said no work on Saturdays. So these are people who are working 80, 100-hour work. We're not supposed to work on Saturday anyways, especially if you already worked 80, 90, or 100 hours, right?
Right.
But what they didn't say was they're going to change expectations. They're going to change the workload. So, of course, you're going to log in and work on Saturday because the work still has to get done.
Right.
That's ridiculous. It's just, it's insulting.
No work on Saturdays means it gets pushed to the other days.
Yeah, you'll do it on Sunday night or Saturday night, whatever, but that's insulting.
Right.
And other big companies like Twitter, Apple, Facebook, they have intellectually challenging jobs as well. So what they're offering people, they're offering something a little bit different. They're offering them a chance at a windfall to be part of one of these startups or one of these big companies. And if you get there at the right time, if your timing is exactly right, you might win the lottery, the work lottery. And they offer crappy stuff like remote work, free food, casual attire. Those things, do you call those real benefits, though? A foosball table?
Benefits are beanbag chairs in the lunchroom and Nerf fights in the office. We all know that takes the place of medical and dental.
Yeah, 100-hour work weeks, but you don't have time to play foosball.
Right.
And working from home, working 100 hours is the same as working at work for 100 hours. So what's the difference?
Can you imagine making that much money and working 100 hours and you are desperate to talk to somebody who's not a spreadsheet? And then they're like, yeah, but your lunch is free in the lunchroom.
Or they're bragging about another perk is informal atmosphere. What the hell does that mean? Because we're all dressed like slobs and we swear once in a while. What's informal?
You're wearing a Hawaiian shirt while your boss ignores you at a board meeting.
Yeah, exactly. It's just so silly. So the bottom line is you can survive the grind and do your time. Maybe, hopefully, you'll switch to another company and become a millionaire. We suffer a chronic misconception in life. The misconception that we have more time than we really do. We have a someday off in the horizon. And anything we wish we could do today, but don't have the time for, we ship it off to that someday. But living takes energy. Living is chasing children. Living is taking a trip to Europe. Living is backpacking and hiking and getting those 30-minutes of meditation each morning. Living won't be easier someday. We have the most energy for living right now, this moment, which means the ability to say no is important to hone early. So how do we say no respectively? How do we use no to save our life? Which is what your time really is. It's your life. So here are a few tips that make a good no. A good no is dignified. It's clear. It's respectful. A good no saves both parties time. And if done right, a great no will leave the other person feeling like they've been heard and understood before they were shot down. Be empathetic before you say no. And if you did your job right, the recipient of your no might be hurt by the word, but they'll be thankful for your honesty. A no from you shouldn't knock them off their feet and leave them gasping. Practice being the Roomba of no, because a great no to a friend should send them in a new direction without robbing them of their momentum. You've been listening to The Re-Engineered You. Thank you so much for listening to the show. You mean the world to us. We have a new episode every week.
You can connect with us at www.reengineeredyou.com. That's where we have research links, show notes, and blog articles for all of our episodes. We appreciate feedback, and we love spirited debates.
We're not experts in anything, but we've got an opinion on everything.